I'm gonna walk you through exactly how I did it. And these 4 steps will help you too if you've been wanting to create your own course or group program, but don't feel ready. Which, by the way, nobody ever does, so you are gonna be okay. A large part is because common advice about launching a course is wrong. Especially when your audience is small or maybe even non-existent. You can't rely on just writing a few emails or social media posts and then watching the passive income roll in. Plus, I can't tell you how many people I've seen who've taken months or even years just to create their course. There is absolutely no need to have to take that long. Later in this video, we'll cover the fastest way to create a course that also serves your clients. But before anything else, you do need to build your audience. That's why if you Google it, you're gonna see thousands of people claiming to have the perfect growth strategy. Unfortunately, that's not how audience growth works, especially in the beginning, because you don't know yet what strategy works best for you. Throwback to before my first course when I had no audience. So I pitched myself to every blog you've never even heard of, shared in as many Facebook groups as I could, and even ran paid ads. Basically, it was throw everything at the wall and see what sticks mode. But I was analytical about it. I tracked what worked, what didn't, and what felt best to me. What I realized will probably help your growth too. There wasn't one strategy that just blew my growth out of the water. Instead, it was more like building a Lego Death Star, one brick at a time. Every piece paid off a little bit, and it all added up. It wasn't a huge number, which I'll talk about in just a second, but it was enough because I treated each person like a person and not an audience member. You can do that too by creating a place for people to connect with you, like a Facebook group or a YouTube channel. Today, I do this through my email list, which is my favorite way. But in the beginning, I didn't have the communication or writing skills to rely on just email alone. And this is really important for you too, because it's not just about finding the right strategy. It also depends on the best strategy for the phase you're in your business. That's why back in 2015, I used a Facebook group. Every post shared something that helped my ideal client, people in their 9-to-5s who wanted to build their own business. But, and this is key for you too, I did a lot more than just post. I made it a place to hang out. The moment someone entered my group, I personally welcomed them with a shout out post. Then I shared great content multiple times a day so people would want to come back. When comments came in, I treated it like I was sitting down to coffee with them, taking the time to thoughtfully respond to each one. Soon, people started inviting their friends. They knew this was a place they could rely on to help them grow their business. And that's how I built my audience from 0 to 200 people in just a few weeks. Now, this was a huge deal to me back then, but I get it. You might be thinking, how could I sell anything with such a small audience? This is where we get to the good news. You don't need a ton of people in your audience to start making sales. If you've got the right people who love your work and are interested in what you have to share. You're gonna see in just a little bit how having 200 of the right people helped me make over $8,000 in sales. But first, the bad news. No matter how amazing your product is, no one will care more about it than you. Even your most ideal client has a lot going on in their life. That's why if you just announce your product and launch your course, most people in your audience will probably miss it. So you've got to do something to get their attention first. I actually discovered the second step totally by accident, but it worked so well, I've done it in every single live launch since. I was on a live stream, just chatting with people and answering their questions. And live streams were my go-to back then because it's one of the fastest ways for people to actually see you and connect with you and get that you know what you're talking about. In the middle of talking to someone commenting on my live stream, I have this light bulb moment. If this works so well for me, why not do a few in a row to launch my course? But there is one problem. Even though people can ask you questions on live streams, they're still not actively engaged. They're just watching. So I asked myself the question I always recommend you ask yourself. What would make this more fun and engaging for me? Personally, I'm a sucker for a daily challenge. So that's what I did. The key is to give daily prompts that aren't too overwhelming. For example, this was one of the prompts where I just challenged my participants to create one piece of good, valuable content. Normally, if you're lucky, people will see your launch trigger posts and then forget about them. But with this method, your audience now has skin in the game. Now it's you and them working together, which brings us to step 3, the make or break piece, your actual launch. Think about everything up to this point like training for a marathon. Now it's time to actually run the marathon you've been training for all this time. But this does not have to be complicated either. Around here, we keep it super simple. At the end of the challenge, I just posted an announcement. We're live. For 2 weeks only, enrollment is open. The moment you make that announcement, the race is on. So here's the best tip I have to help you succeed. Commit to talking about your course every single day, no matter what happens, until enrollment is over. Because even after doing everything I just told you about, I still didn't make a single sale until 2 days before the enrollment ended. And in case you're wondering, yeah, it sucks. And yes, I was tempted to give up. But thank goodness I decided beforehand I was just gonna do my best and show up every single day.
Because I want every media guy, every player's rep, everybody to see you for what you are. The best kept secret in the NFL.
Because you never know how your launch is gonna end up. So please don't give up too early on yourself. But during this time, you gotta show up. Every day, I'm posting, I'm talking about the course, I'm doing live streams, sending emails, and this whole time I'm still thinking, everyone and their mom must know about this by now. It feels crazy, but even with all your work, very few people will actually be paying attention. But this is where your giant advantage comes in. For example, in my earlier years in business, I didn't have the reputation or testimonials that I do now. But I did have something else back then, time. You can use that to hop on calls with potential customers and ask them, what are you struggling with right now? I wasn't pushy or salesy either. I actually listened and just had a conversation. If I felt that the course could truly help them, I let them know. And this is the reason people chose me over others who have much bigger audiences. I even had someone say, which I thought was crazy, but also insanely flattering, so I'll take it. I would rather work with you than in Tony Robbins' program. Because with Tony's program, you're not gonna get his personal feedback and support. Being willing to put in that extra work and make those personal connections can make or break your first launches. And it's a lot of work. So don't believe anyone who tells you it's easy. During my first launch, I did over 40 calls. And most of the time I was thinking, I am just not gonna make any sales. But again, I had committed, so I was not gonna give up. And the reality is, people wait until the last minute to buy, so don't lose hope. That's how, despite starting with an audience of just 200 people at the beginning of my launch, I grew my audience to over 700 people during the launch and closed with over $8,000 in sales. But, and I've seen it happen this way for most first course launches, every single person who joined the program was someone I had personally spoken with. Not a single student bought just through my emails or social media posts. That's 16 people I spent quality time connecting with so that they could trust me enough to buy from a first-time course creator. But this is where I see new course creators make a common mistake. It can be tempting after your course launch to think, now I get to rest. No, because now you gotta deliver on the sale. I was in my students only Facebook group every day, answering questions and checking in on people I hadn't heard from. When a client was struggling, I even hopped on a few extra one-on-one calls. My thinking was, look, I do not mind giving way more of my time. I know I'm not at passive income right now. I'll get there. But these people trust me enough to buy from me, even though I don't have a big reputation. So I'm gonna just over-deliver the heck out of this. Plus, the cool thing is, when you do a good job, some of your clients will naturally want more from you. So high five to that. In my case, at the end of the course, several of those clients asked me how they could continue working with me one-on-one. Those follow-up sales can make even more than your initial launch. For me, the back-end sales added over $20,000, bringing my first launch total to over $30,000 in sales. Now, all that is awesome, but you might be thinking, Luisa, I am still so overwhelmed even thinking about creating my course. You can eliminate all of that overwhelm by not creating your course upfront. And in fact, you shouldn't. To be clear, you do need to know your outline and what you're going to be teaching. You are not winging it. but don't create the actual content week over week until you're taking clients through the program. You might think this is lazy or bad, but it's actually the best thing you can do for your clients. I would teach 1 week's content, then learn from all the questions people were asking, which helped me create even better content the next week. My clients were saying things like, "Whoa, you read my mind for exactly what I needed next." But it didn't happen because I'm clairvoyant. I just realized that it's one thing to know the thing that you teach, but it's a whole other skill set to learn how to teach it. That's the skill you're honing as you take your students through your course or group program. To be honest, I usually get a lot of pushback when I get this advice. But the way I see it, people who think they need to have the perfect product first are being driven by their ego. Because the truth is, if it's your first course, it's gonna be far from perfect. So it comes down to, do I care more about my ego or about helping my clients get the best service and results? Creating my first course this way is the #1 reason my course had a 95% success rate, which is unheard of. But even after your course is done and you've got sales and testimonials, go you by the way, there's still one more thing to do. Because one course launch does not equal a lasting, profitable business. That's why in this next video, I share what I would do if I had to rebuild my multi-million-dollar business from scratch. You'll see the simplest and fastest way to get to your first million. Plus, you'll learn from my mistakes and be able to avoid them so you can get there a lot faster.